Well, you know what? I think we've set you all up, and it's now to get you to our opening keynote.
Yeah, that's right. Here's Kirill Gavrylyuk, Vice President of Azure Cosmos DB at Microsoft.
Developers. Welcome to Azure Cosmos DB Conference 2026. We're really grateful to have you here. And let's take a look back at the year since the last conference. And what a world year has it been. Of course, we're all building AI apps at amazing pace, right? And from Cosmos DB perspective, we invested heavily in semantic search. That is core part of any AI app. You have now full text search, hybrid search, vector search, semantic re-ranker, plethora of capabilities. With confidence, we can say if you're using Cosmos DB, you do not need a separate search system. Just use built-in capabilities and take advantage of cost efficiency, performance, scale, reliability, and precision. And of course, more than half of our customers are using coding agents today to build apps on Cosmos. And for that, we offered great agent kits with skills to make your coding agent world-class expert. We added MCP servers and other capabilities to make this possible. Now, AI does not remove the need for reliability, security, performance. And that is our priority number one. This is where we invest the most of our energy. We've provided throughput management, fleet management for customers with large fleets of Cosmos DB. We've invested with simplified partitioning, with global security indexes, hierarchical partition keys. We've invested in per partition out of failover, and now Cosmos DB is the only database that offers you 5 nines reliability for any consistency mode. And of course, security is number one priority, a number of improvements in security space. Last year, we've added second NoSQL database to Azure, DocumentDB. Unlike Cosmos, DocumentDB is fully open source. It's based on an open source project at Linux Foundation where Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and 12 other vendors are collaborating. DocumentDB has a number of advantages over other document databases, and notably, more than 40% cheaper than any other document database, including MongoDB Atlas on AWS. So please come over to Azure, use DocumentDB, take advantage of performance and low cost. Now, AI transformation is on top of everyone's mind, right? And for databases, really means, in my opinion, 3 things. One is AI increased the importance of flexible data. The data AI processes and emits is all semi-structured, right? It's prompts, it's memory, context. That's what AI is focused on. And Cosmos DB provides you first-class support for semi-structured data. It proudly presents flexible data model. Now, AI accelerated the pace at which we develop applications. And flexible data is paramount for you to enable this pace. Right? Developers cannot be locked down by strict schemas. They need schema flexibility, which is, again, number one capability of Cosmos DB. That's why we build the database, is to provide you schemaless flexibility in data modeling. Now, AI brought semantic search as a first-class operator into queries. And it's true for any database that matters. And of course, in Cosmos DB, we invested far and beyond of that. We added semantic search, full text search, vectors, hybrids, semantic re-ranker. We invested in GraphRag, and we're about to announce agentic retrieval, which takes GraphRag to the next level, where the graph, knowledge graph, can be inferred by LLM for you without you having to manually construct it. Now, the third important thing about AI transformation is we all now are accompanied by our coding agents. That's our favorite friends now, right? Coding agents speed up development, and for coding agents to be efficient, world-class experts in databases, they need skills. And that's why we invested in Cosmos DB Agent Kit, we'll talk about it later, that provides skills to your coding agent, no matter which coding agent you use, along with MCP servers, plugins for any favorite coding agents that you may choose. Now, let me introduce our guest speaker, Guillermo Rauch, founder and CEO of Vercel, a popular AI app development cloud. And Guillermo knows a thing or two about what AI apps need from databases.
An honor to have with us
CEO and founder of Vercel, Guillermo Rauch. Guillermo, you've built libraries like Socket.io and Next.js that form the modern web as we know it today. On top of it, you've built a highly successful company, Vercel, that has seen a really good growth of developers that provides developer cloud. What do you credit Vercel's success?
I think if I look back on the principles that we created Vercel on, it was really about the ease of use. At the time, it was ease of use for humans. Now, lately, I've been calling it agent ergonomics or ease of use for agents. It's about, you have an idea and you need to bring it online and you actually want it to scale and work really well and be a really high quality product. So if it could be summarized as something simple, it would be the focus of ease of use, but in the service of quality, not just, getting slop, as we call it these days, online that crashes and pages you at midnight.
Makes sense. As you transition to agents as your customers, what surprised you is what's happening in the industry?
It's really the scale. As an entrepreneur, as a founder, you start doing like market sizing estimates when you're preparing your early decks for your investors and would-be investors. And the common wisdom was that, even being generous, maybe there were 30 million people that could deploy applications because we targeted the easiest programming language that we could think of, JavaScript, TypeScript, trying to make the cloud super accessible. But it's still tens of millions of people. And Next.js also lowered the barrier to entry to React into this universe. But when you think about agents, they're empowering everyone on the planet to create software. They might not even be realizing that they're creating software. They might just ask for a solution to a problem. And in the process, the agent writes an application and deploys it on our cloud. So a lot of the growth that we're seeing these days is literally, by the way, happened yesterday. A high school friend of mine came to visit me. He'd never written a line of code in his life. And he's like, oh, by the way, I know what Vercel does now because Claude Code deployed to Vercel and told me the application was now online. So I could have never imagined that we would see an increase in, let's call it 100 times, the addressable market of creators of software, maybe even higher. I think we'll be soon in the future where software is like water. Like it's just a normal thing to create, consume, sell, and it's everywhere.
That's amazing. And as the platforms that is so frequently used by the agents, what do you expect of the modern database? How can we help you?
Well, I'm very thankful. I always tell the team, because part of growing up as a company is telling the stories and scars of the early days. We started out using a database that was very managed by me in the early team. And it was a horrifying experience. And I reached out to you, and I'm very thankful, Kirill, through an introduction from Nat Friedman, because I was looking for a solution that would help me focus on growing Vercel and not being a DBA. We had very few people on staff. This is literally the garage story. And one of the convictions that I had that helped me choose Cosmos and be savvy about this, because I'll tell you, some of the less familiar developers look at query languages and like they might have a little bit of culture shock sometimes. But one of the things that convinced me is that compute was becoming serverless. The value of Vercel was you deploy, it scales to 0, it scales to billions of people. I literally am supporting applications these days that were vibe coded and go viral all over the internet and have traffic that even teams of engineers would have never dreamed of and can now be sustained by someone that barely knows how to prompt. And the magic there is that it was that bet on serverless. Because I also tell you the reality is that a lot of this software is quite ephemeral that's being written by the agents. Maybe it's useful for a day. Maybe it's useful for a presentation. We're seeing a lot of sales engineers, including people at Microsoft, use V0 to vibe code an app for a sales pitch. For a demo for pre and post sales to demonstrate an integration of a product. And so if software is ephemeral, serverless is scaled to 0 and the flexibility there is extremely useful. So I'm very thankful that we made the right bet. The other thing that I wanted to be super mindful of that serverless compute helps a lot with is fault isolation. So I didn't want to get a machine hot that could create noisy neighbor problems. Imagine if the misbehavior of one tenant could impact the reliability, uptime, availability of other customers. But what I just described is the everyday database. It's kind of nuts that there's so many people that kind of live in the shadows, I think, because they put systems online whose behavior they cannot predict. They might become a wave of queries or users or whatnot that just ruins the day for everybody. And people start citing slow query logs and all that junk. And so I wanted a system that gave me an economical thinking where the developer writes a query and they understand its cost. We can project out its cost. A lot of what I think has made Cosmos successful is that it kind of makes sense in a token world, right? Like when I use a coding agent, I know that certain traces of reasoning cost more compute. When I make a cross-partition query in Cosmos, I get back an RU count of like how much I spent on that query. And so it allowed me to scale Vercel from a few developers that didn't want to have a DBA on staff and to actually hundreds of engineers that are supporting a growth in usage that I would have never imagined with deployments, which is one of the key collections that we host on Cosmos, having grown our weekly deployment count is 3x'd in a few months. And I think there's probably no database system in the world that I could have homegrown, for example, that could have absorbed that kind of growth that agents have gotten us.
Thank you. Well, we're very grateful for you to be our customer. We have many developers online right now watching this that are early in career. What would be your advice to them?
Well, one of the things is that the agent is like the new computer. And this is advice that I give myself every day, is that I really have to update my priors every day. I give a presentation to the whole company saying, look, these are the things that I used to believe AI couldn't do. And I was wrong. I'm coming out and saying it. Like, I thought AI couldn't, contribute to large code bases. I was wrong. I thought AI couldn't do good designs. I was wrong. And so it's very important to realize that the things that you've learned, you have to hold on. Of course, you have to appreciate the skills that you've developed and be proud. But also, you should be very light on your feet, is my advice. I like to think of the engineer of the future as someone that is very full stack in their understanding of the business. When I hire an engineer, I don't expect them to just be typing code or even prompts for that matter. I want them to understand the full problem. Again, it's a little bit like I mentioned that economy system that Cosmos has given us, where I was able to shift the burden of understanding, what our database performance and cost is going to be to the everyday developer. They didn't toss the problem out to, some other team will worry about scaling my database, right? No, you are participating in that process. And I think the original ethos of DevOps was very much in that direction. I think the difference now is that everyone is super full stack. I do design, I generate videos, I generate SVGs, I create front-end code bases, I create back-end code bases, I write CLIs. During the holiday break, I vibe coded my own Swift menu bar app. And so I think the antidote here, or like the way to really stay relevant, is to be super open-minded and super full stack.
Thank you, Guillermo. Really grateful for us to have you here. Appreciate everything what you're doing. Love your posts. Love you everything that Vercel company is.
Likewise, it's been a great journey, and excited to continue collaborating with you all and do more with Vercel in the future.
Thank you, Guillermo. Now, Guillermo just covered few of the reasons why they chose Azure Cosmos DB. But these are the same reasons why thousands of other companies choose Cosmos as a database for their agentic apps. Its schema-free flexibility enables your team to run fast, iterate fast. Its search built into your query engine so that you don't have to deploy different systems for search, for database, etc. It's reliability, low latency, and serverless elasticity to enable your software to spike, to enable your app to grow with demand without you touching anything. And of course, it's 5 nines reliability that makes your sleep sound while your software runs and serves millions and billions of people. Now, when it comes to AI use cases, we have many, but the common ones with Cosmos DB, of course, include vector database, right? That's why we invested in vectors, multimodal vectors, the speed and cost effectiveness of vector search. Semantic retrieval building on top of vectors offers you ability to do full text search, hybrid search, precise, increased precision of your retrieval, taking advantage of the knowledge graph of your system. But a recent trend is a new use case that tripled in size over the last 6 months is agentic memories. We have more and more systems choosing Cosmos DB as agentic memory for their apps, and there is a reason for it. Memory is semi-structured, memory is dynamic, memory needs to be reconciled over time, and all of these capabilities are built into Cosmos so you can focus on what app needs to do and less about the infrastructure that it runs on. Now, let's get a couple words about the search in Cosmos DB. The vector search is based on DiscNN algorithm built by Microsoft Research. And the two key things about it is, one, it's extremely cost efficient. Compared to the traditional separate standalone search systems, it's up to 50 times cheaper, as you can see on the charts. It is also low latency and scales no matter the scale of your app. It provides you the same millisecond latency for your vector search and full text search queries. And it scales well from few vectors to billions of vectors in your data set. Now, when you think about an AI app built on Cosmos, of course, OpenAI ChatGPT comes to mind. That is well known. It's a tremendous one-of-a-kind application. It executes more than 1.4 trillion transactions daily against Cosmos DB. It stores more than 45 petabytes in Cosmos by now. And at this scale, it's the fastest growing app on the planet. It still grows tenfold every year. And to dive deeper into what enables OpenAI to scale that fast and maintain that rapid pace of innovation, let me invite John Lee, staff engineer from OpenAI, to share a few thoughts with us. Well, hi, John. It's really great to have you here. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, of course. It's good to be here. My name's John. I'm on the online storage team at OpenAI.
Awesome. Well, OpenAI is a unique company in many ways, right? But one of the things that everyone knows about it is that, and it's really visible, is that it moves really fast. You guys are doing many things concurrently and very fast. What does OpenAI look for from databases to enable you this fast pace of innovation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are lots of standard database things, that we care about at scale. So predictability, being able to scale to petabyte sizes, being very flexible with how our use cases can be built, and then of course observability is very important. But I think from like the scale perspective and being able to move really fast, the most important thing here is like being able to scale from 0 to millions of QPS, being able to scale from 0 bytes to petabytes, right? Features are launched on the regular, and they go immediately from no usage to being used by hundreds of millions of people on a daily basis, kind of thing, right? So the way that you might design a normal database and then scale it out as your use case grows, that just doesn't work at this kind of velocity. And I think we have thousands of developers that are actively building products. So with Codex now, things are iterating even faster. It's really important to make it easy to onboard to databases really fast. So, we have thousands of tables that, we have to back by Cosmos DB. And we have a system in front of Cosmos that helps you be able to do sort of schemaless design, right? And allow these product developers to onboard very quickly.
Amazing. Could you share any of the interesting patterns that you guys have done on top of Cosmos DB?
Yeah, I think predictability is really key for how we use Cosmos DB. We have a very well-defined API that we have and expose. And all of these clients, they build on top of this, right? And that allows us to keep the system stable. We don't want every client to be writing their own Cosmos DB queries, creating their own Cosmos DB accounts, creating their own tables. So we try to build a multi-tenant system on top of Cosmos. Interestingly, sort of at this global scale where we have a lot of Cosmos accounts in a lot of regions, region failure is a big problem, right? It doesn't happen often, but with dozens of regions, it will happen. And so we definitely use Cosmos DB multi-region write. We replicate our accounts so that we can always shift reads and writes to other regions in case of outages. But generally also for good performance, you need to be able to allocate your data in Cosmos DB accounts that are close by. One particularly interesting feature that we use for Cosmos DB is that we have tiers of Cosmos DB accounts where some of these accounts that are being used to store globally accessed metadata, so like things like account information and user settings, we actually replicate that to dozens of regions as opposed to just a single region.
That's fascinating. What is you've done a lot of innovations on top of Cosmos DB. What's your favorite?
I would say that being able to move data across Cosmos DB. So we have a lot of products that will start on a single Cosmos DB account and in a single container. But as they grow or as their needs change, right, iteration is very important at OpenAI. As needs develop, maybe we realize that they have much higher performance constraints, right? And so being able to transparently migrate their data from one Cosmos DB account to a different Cosmos DB account that is globally replicated, that is something that we've spent a lot of time trying to build around. And the Cosmos DB team has given us a lot of the building blocks that we need to be able to do that.
That's awesome. We should at some point jointly publish it, because a lot of viewers would love to see this as well. Well, we have many app developers that are early in career or potentially are still in college. What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, I think this is evident also in the way that our system has been built to accelerate product teams. There's a big culture at OpenAI about shipping things and shipping things quickly. I think it's important to have like a vision of what you're working towards, but don't overbuild solutions to problems, right? Like try and get something working into the hands of your users, and then you can evolve and iterate on it. Almost never you will get the first iteration correct, but you'll learn from that experience. Yeah.
Thank you so much, John, and thank you so much for being our customer, and thank you for joining us at this conference.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, John. Now, what you noticed, John mentioned codex use in OpenAI. Everyone uses coding agents, right? As I said, based on telemetry, more than half of our customers are now using coding agents. And for you to get started, let's say you don't know about Cosmos DB yet, right? The best thing is to install our agent kit. This is a set of the skills that gets your agent up and running and becoming the world-class expert in Cosmos DB. It has 80+ skills and growing, encompassing best practices with Cosmos DB across the entire app lifecycle, from data modeling to partitioning to queries, indexing, throughput management, high availability, and monitoring. Now, to see it in action, let me invite our fearless product leader, Andrew Liu, to show Agent Kit in a demo.
Oh. Hi, Kirill. So to set the stage, I am building an app here. It's a travel planner. It's a multi-agent Cosmos DB application, and it's going to help me plan a trip. So here I'm planning a 5-day family trip to LA that includes my 3-year-old daughter. Now, what's important about this is that it's not just helping me plan the trip. It remembers where I left off, And this is done by storing memory in Cosmos DB. This includes short-term memory, long-term memory, and vector. Now, here's the thing. It's not about the application, but rather I'm new to building AI apps. And the thing I constantly question myself is, did I build it right? Because at scale, getting it not right gets expensive. What if I pick the wrong partition key? What if I have the wrong data model, the wrong index? I mean, that's burning RUs in production. That's the kind of thing that you don't want to surprise you when you launch and scale. So let's jump over into what this looks like in VS Code. And first thing I want to show you is actually our new VS Code extension, or relatively new. Many of you guys have seen the portal, and we get it. We've also gotten a lot of the feedback on, we really want to go and improve the desktop tooling. And so we've been putting a lot of effort into the VS Code extension. And what you'll find here is you'll get a lot of the same operations, but you can do it now in line with your code without having to context switch. So here I have my Cosmos DB account, and it works just the same way. I can go and query the database right behind this application. And what you'll see is I'm storing a bunch of data in Cosmos DB. I have my short-term memory in the form of messages. I have my long-term memory in the form in this memories container, where I have things like my declarative memory, which is durable facts, procedural memory, where I have behavioral preferences, and episodic memory, which is going to be things that are a bit more trip specific. Now, let's go into the magic on Agent Kit. Did I even get this right? And so installing this is actually very easy. Just one CLI command away, you can use npx skills add and go and add the Cosmos DB Agent Kit. It's going to go through a few different questions, like setting it up for the project scope or doing it globally on your computer. But when it sets it up, what it's going to do is it's going to go and create this on the project scope, a .agents container, or rather a directory, and it'll load all of my skills in here. Now that I have my agent skills set up, let's go and go check out the quick application. Let's see. So I am going to go take a look here, and I'm going to have it just go review my Cosmos DB data model for performance issues. Now, this isn't just a generic LLM looking at the code. The agent skills is a packaged set of specialized expertise modules, right? We're taking a lot of context about Cosmos DB and bringing that into modules just for this. Now, there's no services, no accounts. It's a repo of skills. So the agent gets smarter about Cosmos. It's teaching the agent how Cosmos DB actually works. It'll include data modeling, best practices, partitioning, indexing, RU economics, and make sure that that actually matches up with my data access patterns. These are things that it took us decades to learn over building real-world Cosmos DB applications. Now you can get that directly in the form of agent skills. Now, this is what's really cool about this. It's not just doing some generic pattern matching and giving me generic NoSQL advice. It's reading my actual code. It's taking a look at my code, my infrastructure as code bicep templates, correlating my partition key, my index policy, my document shapes to the different data access patterns. And it knows what quote unquote good looks like specifically for Cosmos DB. This is expertise that used to live in one senior architect's head on my team. But it was hard to get a hold of those individuals. I had to book them a week out. And now it's just in my editor here on demand. So let's take a look at the summary here. It was able to go and find in order of priority and highest ROI. Oh, shoot, I missed some composite indexes for my order by query. That can shave off a bunch of RUs for each of my different queries. And when I'm running at scale with high QPS, that's really going to add up. It's also going to go and prioritize additional things like, hey, I should go and fix my memory's partition key. Once again, hey, if I get the wrong partition key as this application scales to many partitions, if I have a lot of cross-partition queries, that's going to go add up. And so what I'm really happy about this is it's catching this before I hit live application or live production. And so there's two key takeaways I'd like to, for everyone here in the audience. Number one, if you're a new developer, Cosmos DB doesn't have to feel foreign or scary, like all the cognitive load of partitioning, data modeling. Right here, I can go and interact here with my Cosmos DB agent kit and go and get a live code review of my system and make sure that what I'm doing is well architected by default. And also, if you're an existing Cosmos DB developer, well, this also lets you go and scan your code, scan your past projects, and go look for opportunities for optimizing the performance as well as cost characteristics of that application. Now back to you, Kirill.
Wow, thank you, Andrew. I think the last point resonated with me so much. This is not just allows you to increase your productivity and build apps faster. It's actually a world-class expert in Cosmos DB as your code reviewer. You can plug it into your CI/CD processes, in your code review flows, and it's right there catching any bugs that you may introduce or helping you tune your code to be more efficient. Now, we have great coding agents skilled on Cosmos DB. We have fantastic AI apps. But with all of that, we need systems to continue to be reliable, secure, and performant. And Cosmos DB is built for that. That is the #1 priority for Cosmos DB as a database. Cosmos DB is a database that can take your applications anytime from gigabytes to petabytes, from hundreds of transactions per day to trillions of transactions per day. You don't need to worry about it if you hit an overnight success at some point. Cosmos DB is the only database in the cloud that offers you guarantees not only 5 nines uptime across any consistency modes, including the strong consistency. It also provides you money-back guarantees for 0 data loss, thanks to the consistency SLAs financially backed. And finally, it's the only database that gives you full autonomous resiliency, 0 touch for your system. Now, this scale and reliability is made available to you not only just by software, but also by an awesome hardware. And to discuss how we run the fleet of Cosmos DB, I would like to invite Steve Berg, Corporate Vice President and General Manager of the Server CPU Cloud Business Group at AMD, on stage. Welcome, Steve.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Great to have you. Now, Steve, from your perspective, how does AMD and Microsoft partnership impact how customers experience Azure?
That's a great question. Before I answer the partnership piece, let me give you a little bit of history about our working together with Microsoft. Back in 2017, we launched our first EPYC processor, Naples. And Microsoft was actually the first cloud provider to offer it, to make it available in the cloud. That created a really unique bond between us and Microsoft. And over the past decade, we've worked together to launch 5 more generations of EPYC instances that are available in about 60 different compute families across the globe, with our most recent one being Turin, which is an excellent product. So we're constantly working to optimize our hardware, along with your software, to be more performant, more efficient, and provide new capabilities with each generation. We do this with a deep engineer-to-engineer collaboration on making roadmap changes that improve our products and help them get tuned better for Microsoft Azure needs. So some of these examples include things like confidential computing, 3D vcache, and high-performance bandwidth that's used on some of your VMs. This partnership has led to more Azure first parties adopting our hardware. And that is what the partnership provides, is Cosmos DB and users on Cosmos DB get all the benefits of decades of work that we do together and all the hard work that happens within our collaboration.
I could agree more. We actually use AMD quite heavily in our Cosmos DB fleet, and that's what enables us to scale with demands like OpenAI and other super fast growing applications.
Yeah, exactly. OpenAI and all those just get all the benefits of us working together with everything under the hood. So it's really, that's what the partnership really brings.
That's awesome. Now, in today's world, with global situation, energy efficiency is top of mind. Right? How should builders think about balancing the performance needs and sustainability and energy efficiency?
Yeah, we absolutely focus on that. Our product teams and our engineers are always looking at what's energy efficiency and sustainability. And fortunately, builders who choose to run on Azure get all of this benefit without even really having to think much about it at all, because we do all of the work for them. We work to deliver generation after generation EPYC CPUs with more performance, better efficiency per watt, and improved TCO, which directly translates into users and builders being able to get benefits of cost and maximizing their performance per watt per dollar. That's the critical metric. So when you consider the global reach of Azure with over 70 regions and counting, it's absolutely imperative that we maximize performance for those users in a sustainable way. So focusing on that performance per watt per dollar is where we concentrate on. And when Cosmos DB team rolls out new improvements to your SaaS offerings, builders implicitly get all those benefits just by using the modern infrastructure. And when end users roll their own infrastructure as a service, if they gravitate towards AMD EPYC VMs, they also receive those benefits.
That's amazing. That's exactly what we all need to do, right? We don't want to think about problems that we can't solve. We want you to solve them for us.
We want to make it easy for you, yes.
And semiconductors has always fascinated me as a really tough industry because you have to plan ahead, 5 years ahead, for what CPUs customers might need. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that because I don't think anyone could have predicted what was happening with AI in the past year or so. And it's really fascinating to see what you're doing with agentic AI today. I think the rapid pace of AI took many by surprise. And no one would have guessed the importance that CPU provides in the role in this market, right? CPUs are becoming what I like to refer to as the new bacon. The inference workloads, orchestration, pre and post processing, agentic AI, general purpose, all continue to use CPUs in a very greater detail. And so cloud infrastructure will continue to move from general purpose commodity type machines to increasingly customized and differentiated platforms. And we're going to focus on what's important, that performance per dollar per watt that is so critical in our infrastructure. So we already do a lot of this custom work today. With Microsoft, I provided some of those examples earlier, and we'll continue to expand in this space in the coming years. So if I leave you with a prediction of what's going to happen in the 5-year span, I can tell you that we're going to launch more and more VMs with Azure, and Cosmos DB and user developers in the planet will be able to get benefits from AMD and our collaboration together.
That's exciting. So our Cosmos DB customers can look forward to more transactions per dollar, thanks to the work that we
at a better cost efficiency. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Steve. Thank you for our partnership. Thank you for sponsoring this conference and made these wonderful sessions available.
Appreciate you having me, and thank you all for the time.
Thank you. Now, that's amazing. Now, Cosmos DB is not the only NoSQL database we have on Azure, right? Last year, we launched our second NoSQL database, Azure Document DB. And unlike Cosmos, Document DB started from an open source project. This is a Document DB project at Linux Foundation that Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Yugabyte, and 12 other partners are collaborating on. And both Amazon and us are offering fully managed services, Amazon Document DB and Azure Document DB, on top of this open source project. This is a fully managed document database that has a number of advantages over other document databases. It's faster, it has faster AI search, for example. You can deploy it anywhere in any cloud or on premises, and it's more than 40% cheaper than any other document database on the cloud, including AWS MongoDB Atlas, for example. Let's take a look at an example of this. Let's say I want to send 1 million writes per second to my database. With Azure Document DB, a single instance, single shard, M80 allows me to do that, no sweat. An equivalent scenario, equivalent setup on AWS with MongoDB Atlas, with the same SKU, M80, would only give me 800K transactions per second according to AWS documentation. Well, we have the codes if you want to run it and see for yourself what it does. But according to docs, it's only 800K, and it costs me 60% more. So all in all, I'm paying, I can get twice as many transactions per dollar with Azure Document DB. For every SKU, it's at least 40% cheaper. on SKU per SKU basis. And overall, as you scale your application, load more data, you get more than 85 reduction in TCO for your application. So DocumentDB is really cost effective. Take it for a spin and get the cost efficiency. Now, when should I use which? If you are having a lot of simple queries, if you want to have a mission-critical application, if you want to scale limitlessly, if you like serverless form factor, you like global distribution, Cosmos DB is for you. This is the only database in the cloud that can do all that. But if you prefer open source, if you like MongoDB API compatibility, if you want to potentially port your application to other clouds or on-prem, and you like vCore architecture, then DocumentDB is a good choice for you. Multi-cloud, open source, complex queries, DocumentDB. Lots of scale, serverless, 5 nines reliability, Cosmos DB. Now, what if I want both? What if I want 5 nines resilience and I want cross-cloud portability? As of today, you can do it both. We created an open source project. We launched it today called Multi-Cloud DB. It's fully open source, MIT licensed, and it provides you cross-cloud portability across Azure, AWS, and GCP by providing one data access layer on top of Cosmos DB, AWS, DynamoDB, and Google Spanner. We provide you cross-cloud disaster recovery. We will provide you cross-cloud replication with Sync as part of this project. You don't have to choose. You can have 5 nines availability and cross-cloud portability at the same time using this project and with Cosmos, Dynamo, and Spanner from each of the hyperscalers. Now, these are just some of the topics we will cover in the next few hours. And while we have your attention, join us for Skill Challenge to win free Cosmos DB certification, and stay tuned for more exciting sessions today. Install Cosmos DB Agent Kit, look for more sessions, build an app, and maybe you can talk about it at our next Cosmos DB Conference 2027. Enjoy the rest of the event.